At the start of the divorce hearing, Ethan felt strangely calm, not hopeful, not confident, just tired. For months he had imagined this day. In some versions, he argued. In others, he finally explained everything he had carried for years. But sitting in the courtroom that morning, he realized he no longer wanted to win an argument that should have ended long ago. Across the room, his wife, Claire, looked composed and certain of herself. That certainty was familiar. During 14 years of marriage, she had always been the louder voice, not loud in volume, loud in certainty. If Ethan hesitated, she decided. If he disagreed, she reframed the conversation until his concerns sounded unreasonable. If he remained silent, she interpreted that silence as agreement. Over time, she stopped asking what he thought. Over time, he stopped volunteering. Friends often described Claire as strong and decisive. Few noticed how often Ethan quietly absorbed the consequences of her decisions. The hearing began routinely. Lawyers spoke, documents were reviewed, the judge listened patiently. Then something changed. Claire was asked a simple question about the breakdown of the marriage. Instead of focusing on facts, she turned toward Ethan. Her voice remained calm. That somehow made it worse. He never really contributed, she said. The words landed heavily in the room. He avoided responsibility. Every major decision fell on me. I carried this family. Ethan stared at the table. Part of him expected it. Another part still felt surprised. Years together. And this was how she saw him, or perhaps how she wanted everyone else to see him. She continued describing him as passive, dependent, unmotivated. The portrait she painted was clean and convincing. Anyone hearing only her version might have believed it. Ethan's attorney occasionally took notes but remained silent. The judge listened. Claire grew more confident with every minute. She smiled once while speaking, not warmly, not nervously, the smile of someone who believed the outcome was already decided. Ethan remembered countless evenings at home, working late after everyone slept, managing bills, researching refinancing options when money was tight, taking extra contracts during difficult years. None of it had ever felt extraordinary. It was simply what needed to be done, and because he never announced those efforts, they became invisible. When Claire finished speaking, a long silence settled over the room. The judge reviewed several documents, then looked toward Ethan's attorney.
Counsel?
The attorney stood. Unlike Claire's presentation, his was remarkably brief. He introduced financial records, party documents, AIM correspondence, bank statements, nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, just years of evidence. The records showed who had negotiated the family's major financial agreements, who had managed debt restructuring, who had maintained retirement accounts, who had absorbed financial risks that protected the household during difficult periods. One document led to another, one fact connected to the next. The story emerging from the paperwork looked very different from the one Claire had just described. The courtroom became quieter with every page. Claire's posture slowly changed, not dramatically, just enough to notice. The confidence that had filled the room earlier no longer felt as solid. The judge examined several exhibits before finally speaking. His tone remained professional, measured, but unmistakably firm. Much of the testimony presented earlier appears inconsistent with the documented record. The sentence was simple, yet it changed everything. For the first time that morning, the conversation stopped revolving around perception. It shifted to evidence. The judge continued reviewing specific examples, financial decisions, ownership contributions, household obligations, years of documented participation that directly contradicted several claims made minutes earlier. Nobody raised their voice. Nobody celebrated. No dramatic revelation occurred. The authority of the room simply redirected attention toward facts, and facts proved remarkably resistant to personal narratives. Ethan felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, relief, a quiet, almost unfamiliar relief, not because Claire was being exposed. Not because he wanted revenge, but because someone was finally seeing what had always existed. The hearing continued. By afternoon, several proposed arrangements were adjusted. Certain assumptions were removed from consideration. The final outcome recognized contributions that had previously been dismissed. It was not a perfect result. Divorce rarely produces one, but it was fair, and fairness felt surprisingly significant. When proceedings ended, people gathered documents and prepared to leave. Claire remained at her table for a moment, looking not angry, not defeated, just unsettled. As if she had expected reality to cooperate with her story, Ethan stood and collected his folder. For a second, he considered saying something after all the years, after everything. But nothing came, or perhaps nothing needed to. Some conversations arrived too late to matter. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun felt brighter than he remembered. Cars moved through the street. People hurried past. Life continued with complete indifference to what had happened inside. Ethan paused near the courthouse steps. The marriage was over. The hearing was over. And strangely, the need to defend himself was over too. For years, he had carried the burden of proving his worth to someone determined not to see it. Now an official record existed. The facts were documented. The truth no longer depended on persuasion. He walked toward the parking lot. No celebration waited for him. No victory speech formed in his mind. Only a quiet realization. Patience had never made him weak. It had simply made him easy to underestimate. And for the first time in a very long while, that no longer felt like his problem.